Hello and welcome to our Christmas 2020 Q&A. Wow, can't believe it. It's amazing that we have been here now for, I guess this is 3 years. How many years has it been? It seems like that. 3? Wow, crazy. So super excited to share some space and time with everybody. I have a couple questions already set up and I have some footage that I'm going to use to answer that. And again, everybody just drop your questions in the chat box and we will systematically go through those. I'll do my best to answer them all. I find a lot of times, and this is the case in this scenario, is the two questions that we have are consistent with this footage and they're kind of work through this to help answer these questions. I find a lot of times that some of the things or the problems we have are due to a base that's missing. Many of you know, as you've worked with me and observed my work, that this whole idea of relational horsemanship is built on meeting a horse's needs. When you don't meet your horse's needs, you're generally going to see a lot of these outbursts, whether it's bucking or kicking or biting or whatever. And these are all our horses searching to explain to us that something's not right. And far too often, everything that happens inside of a horse when they act this way is very quickly looked at as negative behavior. And I find this to be one of the biggest crunch points for people and horses, because as soon as your horse is not allowed to share with you how they feel, it immediately puts them into a position where they no longer have a voice. And if you unemotionalize that and you observe that your horse speaking to you or sharing their opinion, so to speak, is them telling you how they feel, it changes the dynamic of the relationship. If you emotionalize their actions, you immediately feel defensive and guarded, and then you feel like it's okay to strike out or to get after the horses. And this starts to create a lot of mud. If you are able to see it from more of a relational perspective, when you see your horse struggle, you know it's an unmet need. And that changes the frequency of energy that you're using, and the horse will feel you differently. So when we can then say, okay, what is that unmet need? How can we help the horse? Then it changes my energy and I can support them by being an example of what I want them to feel. I feel like this is just massively important. Okay, so the two questions that I'm going to start with, just to preface this before I show you the footage. The first one is regarding a horse that's injured and is become aggressive. He doesn't want her to be in the stall. He just gets really defensive about how he's being touched. And the other question was in regards to a horse turning their hindquarters towards a person when they were applying pressure. And both of these things are pretty big deal. You know, you have to, it's challenging when a horse is, you know, they're injured and you have to treat them. It's a pretty big deal. You know, you got to get the job done and the horse doesn't really understand. And a horse that turns their hindquarters to you, if there is an emotionalized action that the horses can do, this is kind of it. You know, it's immediately observed as disrespect and dealt with a lot of strength. And I totally understand, you know, we don't want a horse to kick us. I totally get that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the footage and I'm just going to walk you through how I see some things. All right, this footage is from a horse named Rowdy that we had in a clinic. And I honestly think this horse is awesome. He's such a cool guy, but he had his own way of processing things. And I'm just going to share how he did that and what I'd like to see a little bit differently. All right, how do horses control pressure? This is one of the most important pieces that you are going to get from me, I think, in the beginning, is that how horses control pressure is key to, I would say, almost 3/4 of your problems. So from this horse that turns his hindquarters to a horse that is aggressive, you know, in regards to the injury, how they control pressure sets up a tone. Horses will either control pressure by running, by getting stiff and tight. Okay. And this is where we're going to talk about this from more of a sacked out presentation. And okay, hold on. There's many ways they can do it. But what most people believe is that when a horse feels pressure, and just like how Rowdy wanted to start, when he felt pressure, he just wanted to leave. Okay. And now my goal is to change that. I have believed that horses can control pressure anyway. So what if they could control pressure in a new way? What if it wasn't just that horses always came to thinking they needed to run away just because that's primal? What if there was another way they could control pressure? What if you could meet that need in an entirely different way? So what I like to see here is if I apply pressure, I want that pressure to affect his thought. So whether the pressure is big or small, I want them to start understanding if their thought changes to me that they can control pressure. Where a horse's thought goes is where their feet go. So if I can get his thought to be more connected to me, this starts to change the interaction between him and us because he's not always thinking he has to leave. So whether he's out on the rail, whether I'm, interacting, I want to begin this by setting a soft tone in myself. So I hope you can see how I'm presenting myself. I'm very relaxed. I'm not intensely kind of driving in towards him. But if you can notice, I still have a little pressure there. So I want to keep that pressure. And as his thought is up and away, good. I want to keep the pressure on until he releases. Now, when you're doing this, if you apply pressure and your horse takes off, then you've overdone it. If you apply pressure and you're not getting a change, then it might not be enough. Now the horse, so pressure is always horse specific. So as I step to the left, you see he immediately wants to walk away. And here I just start to gently play with my pressures to get a change. But I want him to understand I'm actually trying to interfere with him moving forward. So I had to experiment a little bit. Don't be afraid to do that, but observe the horses. If your horse will tell you if it's too much, if it's not enough, and you will tell by your results. Okay. All right. Now that's the first step. The first step is just when he's out there, can he start understanding that he can control pressure? And you see now, when I brought that pressure closer to him, this is where we see the next negative effect. So the first one was that he wanted to leave. The second one was that he wants to freeze up. And this is oftentimes where we get this kind of sacked out nature, is we want the horses to stand there, but how they stand there matters so much to me. If a horse is standing there, but he's entirely like a fiddle string, okay, this isn't positive because many of us have seen where this goes next. And this can turn into a horse kicking out. It can turn into bolting or bucking. It's a lot of times why colts will buck, because they're standing there, but they're not okay inside. It's really important to be able to give a horse control that's not about just standing there and tolerating the pressure. So if you noticed, as he turned his eye towards me, I released the pressure. So I start gently showing him, and now I brought it to the other side, and immediately it's kind of like leave or freeze. Okay, and I apply a little bit of pressure here. I don't care what side he goes to right now because that's not the point. There he froze again, so a little bit more pressure. And I'm just looking to see when his eye commits to me. So there's times when he kind of glances at me, but I'm looking to see that he could commit. So we'll see the difference here when that comes up. So as I apply a little bit of pressure, I'm just holding the pressure there. And then as he turns his eye more towards me, I take it away. But I'm waiting on that before I release. Now, this is a question I get often, and it's that, if you want him to come in, why don't you just take the pressure away? Because then I am still engaging in the predatorial pressure belief. So what I mean by the predatorial pressure belief is that it comes down to the same as a predator. A predator comes and the horse runs. And if I want the horse to come to me, then I obviously have to take the pressure away. But then what happens when the pressure comes up is the horse will always think of leaving. What if I can't take the pressure away more? What if the vehicle is still driving on the road or the tarp is still flapping? Can I get him to think through these scenarios? And this is really what sets up the tone for this. I want my horses to understand that when they feel pressure, they can think. This is crucial because that's very relational. All right, so it's important to understand this idea of a sacked out response. So the idea of sacking a horse out is that you're exposing them to pressures, and people have come up with many crazy ideas or things to come up with here. But the idea is that you're just trying to get a horse not to react to the pressure. But what I find is that when we do this, is that a horse actually goes internal. So as I bring the pressure up, you see his response is to go inside himself. So he's not running away. And I guess that's better. But the problem is that he might not be running away, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's okay. And what happens is he's going internal. And this is where I talk about tolerance instead of acceptance or release. Tolerance, if you guys are tolerating me, this relationship will end quickly. As soon as I do something wrong that you just don't love, you're done. So tolerance is really kind of has a negative edge to it. So when I see a pressure come and a horse hold tension inside themselves, you're really starting the beginning of a pressure cooker. Okay. And this is really where a lot of the negatives come. We don't necessarily see it here, but we do end up seeing it later when he can't tolerate it anymore. All right. So what I'm looking for here is I'm changing flight to mind control. If I apply a pressure, I want him to understand that he is 100% in control of the pressure. So depending on it, doesn't matter where I bring that pressure up. Excuse me. I want to see that as the pressure comes up, he can understand to control it. Now recognize what comes after thought is curiosity, and curiosity is trainable. When our horses lose try, when they lose the desire to interact with us and try diminishes, it's very challenging to train a horse because now they are only motivated to do things by negative demanding pressures. And that is, we've lost the relationship then. For me, relationship with horses is not just about what they do for me, but it's this interaction between us. And when that relational heart grows, the joy and the pleasure of it grows. And I love to have that while I go and do everything I'm going to do. So now we see his curiosity comes up. This is the first time he's actually looked at it. And it comes because he knows he can control it. Because if he can control it, then he doesn't have to get ready to run. If I notice he starts to get scared, I will give him the control back. I'll put the flag somewhere. And as soon as here again, as I bring it up to his side, you see we're back into a place where he's unsure. So I hang around, not so close that he runs, but I want it to be close enough that he has to deal with it. This is really about empowering a horse. I want them to get to a place where I can ask them challenging questions and they have the ability to kind of get this. So I sped this bit up because I just wanted to show you the interactions. This is kind of like double speed, but it's really the same concept. And I repeat it a couple times because I really want to get to a place where it becomes first thought for him and not second thought. There we go. You see how when it started, I'd bring the thought up and then he would get tight and freeze, but you see the intensity of his tension is lessening, and that has to be rewarded. It has to be rewarded. You have to be able to reward the horses when their first thought comes up and they start to recognize that they can control it. So if I feel them get stuck, I'm going to keep that pressure. And this was a really important piece here because if you noticed, he walked away that time, but he actually turned around and came back before he hit the fence. And this is also one of the reasons why I don't chase horses off. If you chase them off, what happens is they've got to go away and go around before they can recover. But all I want to do is just gently keep that pressure there. I'm actually going to rewind that just so you can see it. And everyone is going to be able to watch this later on a recording, but this is an important piece. So as I stepped, you see he's frozen. So I encourage the pressure and then he goes, but you notice he doesn't get to the fence. He actually remembers that he can control the pressure by doing something different. And guys, that's when you start seeing a transformation in your horse. All right. So now what I wanted to do is I just want to have 6 steps to develop relational pressure control. So how can you control pressure or help a horse control pressure in a relational way? So there's going to be 6 steps that you can follow through with that are just going to help you build that. So the first step is you have to see the thought change. It is absolutely imperative that when you apply a pressure, and remember guys, we're talking about pressure control. So when you apply the pressure, you have to see that thought change. It cannot be just because he stood there. All right, so now you see every time I bring this in and he freezes, I wait until he brings his eyes. I wait until he brings his eyes. So there are moments when you're going to see him do this and freeze, and I will always wait. Then you're going to also see moments here when I come in, oh, and then my timing was a little bit off. It doesn't matter, that happens. And then as soon as I see a change in his thought, I'm going to release. So here again, pressure and release. So he starts to get, you'll notice he gets more and more comfortable and he starts to stay mentally connected. There, I missed that one because I was talking. That happens. But did you notice he didn't leave? He just kind of got straight. And then the next time I took it away. So don't expect that you have to be perfect. This is just such a challenging concept of, feeling like we have to get everything right all the time. All right, good. So now you see his mind is more connected to me. There's a softer deal between us, but I want to get to a place where he understands he can control the pressure with his thoughts. Okay, the second step is, if you notice right now, all you've ever seen Rowdy do is stand and turn his head and neck. When it got to his feet, if you noticed, he actually had to leave. And the last time he recovered and turned towards me. But up to this moment, he wasn't able to let his thought get all the way to his feet. So it's important that you recognize, to me, it's always thought first. It's not feet first. I don't move the feet to get the mind. I get the mind, and then I let the feet follow the thought, because then that means I'm not taking the body from the horse. I'm connecting to the mind and letting the horse sort their own body out. So the second phase is, can I get the thought or to change the feet? So I come in and I apply, and you see again, the feet are very stuck. And this is not great. You want those feet to not be stuck. A lot of problems come because of stuck feet. And then when they move a lot bigger than we would love them to. But you see here, now he's getting to a place where he can follow all the way through. And this is not about him moving his hips. Okay, if you watch this, this is a prime example that if this thought didn't direct his hindquarters. So right now he's froze. Now Rowdy's not an aggressive horse, but this is where you can see this happen. If this frozen thought were to come and he did not get to a place where he could understand how to control the pressure with his thoughts, see, when his thought comes, he brings his eyes and his hindquarters direct his eye. But when a horse is believing they need to control pressure negatively, that hindquarters stays frozen just like it is. And slowly the horse gets to a place where he's actually getting aggressive or in a negative state. If horses are running, they're defensive. Defensiveness can come out of kicking. It can come out of teeth. It can come out of ears. It can come out of front feet. So we want to change defensiveness and tolerance to softness and acceptance. Okay, so then I want to see that I can get to a place. This is why this is an important step there. That hindquarter steps under and across, and you see his mind is bringing him to me. Also recognize, guys, the softness that's in him when he's doing it. All right, so now he's out on the fence, and I want to see that the feet can come all the way in, not just his head and neck. So as I apply this pressure, you see he brings his eyes, and then look, he comes all the way in with his feet, and there's a nice flow in it. He wasn't sticky. He didn't get hung up on the fence. He just brought his eyes, and his feet came. If there was a way to start getting a softness through the horse's body that would remove a negative element of their hindquarters, it's to get the horses to understand that they can control pressure with their thought. It's a super important thing because this removes defensiveness. It removes from them the belief that they have to guard themselves when they feel pressured. So I try not to use pressure in a negative definition, and I don't want to send a horse or move a horse off when they're in a fearful state, because this causes them to get relief by going away in a guarded position. So then slowly they get more and more guarded. All right, so now we have the loose work. We have expressed this through turning the horse loose and just gently trying to help a horse understand how they can control it with their thought. We've taken that thought all the way to the feet, and we want to see flow, whether it's standing still and moving or out on the rail and coming in. And now we want to change our pressure from the flag to a halter. But guess what? To Rowdy, it isn't different. So as I bring that pressure into him, what is his first response? Because he's such a good guy, and he also understands that he's supposed to stand there and wait, but he's not really okay with it. Look where he goes. He goes into that state where he's holding tension. Okay, and so then this is what I want to do is I want to wait, and look, it's the same thing. And guys, this is where it gets real easy. I'm not complicating it. I'm not trying to overdo it and make every exercise different. If you can do your best to help a horse understand that pressure can be controlled by staying mentally committed, you are deepening a relationship and a mental connectivity, but you're also giving your horse what they need. So you're really double dipping here. And then you see the more we do this, the more Rowdy gets pretty calm to stand there and wait. All right, now, so the first thing I did is I presented the halter, and I wanted to see him mentally make a change. So he understood he can control the pressure of that halter the same way as we did everything else. And now I put just a little bit of pressure. I'm just gently putting that halter against his neck, and I'm not trying to kind of pull or make him do anything. I'm just putting that question. Now watch his thought so you can see where's his mind. His mind is somewhere over there, probably a distraction or a horse or something that he's looking at. Okay, and then where's my release? When his thought changes. Now look at the change. So I want to now incorporate getting his mind to stay calm and present with me through every pressure. So again, pressure is controlled by softly thinking, not by tolerating, not by holding it in, not by getting tight. All negative impacting elements to a training program. If you want your horse to do well, how they understand pressure is critical. All right, so then I just gently apply pressure. There we go. There's a deepening of his thought. And then if you noticed, I put it over his nose over a present thought, not over a gone thought. I'm not putting his halter on to keep him. I'm putting the halter on to just deepen my connection to him. It's very challenging. If you're putting your halter on just to keep your horse, you're already in trouble. Because if you need the halter to keep him, you're going to end up running into trouble somewhere, because they're benevolent, huge creatures. And if they want to leave, they're going to leave. All right. So now we have the halter on. And the goal now is can I use positive pressure control in the halter? So I want to see that this pressure can be controlled in the halter. And you guessed it, exactly the same way. But here's the deal. When I bring this to Rowdy in the halter, he started acting different. He started acting a little bit more sacked out. And this is normal, because a lot of these experiences have happened on the halter, and the horses kind of get to an idea where they realize when the halter's on, I can't really do anything. But you can see it in how they stand. Look at the tension in his top line. Look at his eye. Look at his ears. Every part of him is demonstrating he's not necessarily okay with this. So he's going inside himself. But where people get lost is because the horse is standing still. They think it's acceptable. And to me, again, tolerance is never a positive thing. I want to see that a horse is calm. So as I move my flag around, he went into that state. As I'm moving my flag here, he's still in that inverted posture. He's kind of swallowed. His eyes aren't present. He's standing like a statue. So it seems okay, but it's not positive in my mind, because he's gone within himself. That is not a relational attribute. I do not want him to not feel comfortable with me. So then what I do is I'm just going back to the exact same work and helping Rowdy understand that when I apply these pressures, he can control it the exact same way he did when he was loose. And what this does is this starts to all of a sudden activate his ability to understand how to control it again. I love it. I love that we can start seeing that transformation happen. Very good. Excellent. So now we're starting to see, you can almost see him bending on the circle. And that starts the beauty of a good Liberty circle, because it's not about the halter now. He is with me because he is hooked on. His mind is with me, and then the feet follow. But also, it's complemented with pressure control. So you see now we're making this even more beautiful. We're making the connection and the connectivity of this even deeper, because we're meeting that need on a deep level, but that builds relationship. And to me, I don't know, I just get excited about this stuff, because I just love how now I can meet my horse's need, and then he's able to be present in that relationship, and it just deepens what we can experience together. Okay, so now we want to see that softness in motion. I want to see that it's not just that he's moving with his mind, but that can we get him to actually soften? One of the things that I tell people, or one of the ways I look at this, is that a horse wears their mind physically in their top line. So if a horse is anxious, you're going to see all of that tension written in that top line. When a horse is calm, they relax all those defensive muscles, and the mind is also demonstrated in the top line. Rowdy would hold a lot of tension in his body. It's why he would take little short strides. And that's a real tendency for horses that are holding tension. A horse can even have their head curled right up and look collected and have a super tight back, because again, it's not about what the head and neck do, but about what the whole back does. So we're just going to see here now, can I start influencing the effect of my lead line? Okay, so up to now, I'll just back that up a bit. So up to now, you see here, I connect with my rein. And I want to see that I can start influencing my lead rope to add a soft feel only. Now, the more I can get him to mentally be with me, the less I need my lead rope to keep him. This is a cool thing, because now the lead rope is entirely just about connection. So what I want to see here is that now when I do touch my lead rope, all I'm doing is I want to feel the tension, and I want to sense when he releases. So I connect, and it's there. As soon as he softens, I release. So the lead rope heightens how he feels, because I can remove the tension that's in his body. So I apply a little pressure, and now it's not just, can you look at me, but also, can you soften? And those are the two high points of what I'm looking for when it comes to pressure. I want them to understand how to control the pressure by thinking, and also control the pressure by softening. And this changes. Look at the form and how he's moving now. A soft, relaxed top line, and I am still using the pressures, but it is causing him to A, commit to me mentally, and B, soften to the rein. And when I can get pressure to understand, or I can get pressure to meet needs like this, I change direction. You remember how it happened when I changed directions initially? He immediately got tight and thought of holding that tension. And slowly now we're getting softness to the rein, to his mind, and all with pressure. Very cool. And then the sixth step, finish with connection. No matter what pressure you use, whether it's a little or a lot, finish with connection. Just spend time. Let the horse feel. I want to make sure I'm not just petting a frozen horse. I want to feel him active there. I just bumped him. That was my fault. And then a little feel on the rein, and you see he's interacting with me and we're talking. If you can't finish with some kind of connection, this demonstrates that maybe you overdid it. Maybe you did too much. Then as I go back, you see how he's coming softly and he's bending there, but he's very relaxed, and I'm able to pet him, and that feels pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just want to see some positive change. And the more positive changes you can see, the better this gets. Okay, well, I hope that was helpful to you. So in regards to answering the question of, what if horse turns their hindquarters on me? What do I do? Regarding the hindquarters statement, what this generally means is the horse has been left for too long, holding tension in a negative way, and to the point where they have to start feeling like they have to defend themselves. So that's a byproduct of feeling defensive about pressure. So what I encourage is do your best to back that up. Don't feel like you have to get after the horse. Now, I'm not saying that you have to turn and walk away or stop pressuring, but the idea is let your pressure be specific to a mental release. Now, my biggest thing with that is don't get bigger and feel like you have to chase your horse off, because now you're trying to develop a clean connection by yelling at each other. Okay, the horse is yelling and now I'm yelling, and now we're all of a sudden not an example of the feelings we want to achieve. So stay very calm, gently apply pressure, and try to gently get the horse's thought to change. Now, if your horse is at a place where they're kicking, probably you need to back the whole boat up anyways and just gently start with small pieces. But I want you to recognize that stems from this very footage that I showed about Rowdy with this whole idea that they need to know how to control it in a positive way, not a defensive way. Now let's just take that quickly to our injured horse. I'm going to come at this two ways. I'm not always going to come at it with the idea that, I'm going to walk in there with a flag, but maybe you have gauze, maybe you have cream. Okay. So there's two ways that I encourage this. And the first way is bring it towards them. And when they bring their head towards it, take it away. Then bring it a little closer to where you need to treat. And when the horse brings their head towards it, take it away. The more positive control you can give them, the better. Okay. So that's number one. And the second one is, just like I did with Rowdy, bring it in, get your hand close to their leg, ask them to soften. When they soften, take it away. The idea is don't try to take the body as quickly as you can. The idea is help the horse understand that they are not out of control. As soon as you feel in control, the environment changes, the relationship changes. But if you're staying in a scenario because someone is hanging onto your shirt, okay, now most of us are we stop listening and we're just trying to get out of that scenario. So you've removed yourself from a productive state. All right. So hopefully those two pieces can help us understand how we can just help our horses get more out of defensive positions and start building better relationships. All right, so let's start looking at some of our questions. Again, guys, any questions, just drop them in there. There's no bad questions. This is a big deal. There's no bad questions. There's only bad answers. The pressure is not on you. It's on me. Please remember this. People always fear asking questions because they don't want to look silly. It's not on you. The pressure is right here. You guys, you are the students. You're coming to me, wanting to know the answers. So for me, teachers demonstrate, or the way I demonstrate my answers to you will help you understand more about me and whether or not you even want to learn from me or not. So it's really important that you understand that. So please, guys, boldly write your questions and let the pressure be where it should be. All right. Hello. Very excited to see you all. I think I keep messing up our changing timeframes. Right. I think Rhonda's from Australia, and that is definitely a challenge. I've been really trying to process all that because people coming from different places are, I'm glad you made it, Rhonda. Leona. Hi, Leona. Leona says, for the past number of years, Kari has been so brave, and we have had wonderful trail rides. Last spring, 2020, he had a pretty big spook. I did not come off, but was able to really get but was unable to really get him connected to me again that ride. Since then, he's much spookier on the trail. Only one time when I was nervous. The other times, he and I were both very calm and settled. Any suggestions? Awesome. This can happen. You know, horses can go to their reptilian brain so quickly. We have a hard time with this. And this is a lot of times why people are disrespectful to the nature of a horse. We have a big cerebral processor, and our processor causes us to actually look down on our horses. The horse's processor is tiny, so they will go from thought to reaction way quicker. And we have this buffer zone. So when things like this trigger our horses, it's imperative that we are able to find ways to break that down. So what I would encourage Leona is, for a moment, I would back it down, because see what happens. Most of us, when we go on our trail rides and we're at home, we kind of have a process that we go through. And when our horses are doing really well, we tend to do less of the prep work to get our horses ready for something. All right. So then what happens is we kind of do a little bit of work, and then we get on them and we ride a bit, and then we go for a trail ride. But the key is if we go through a process that causes them to think the same way, then their mind is setting up the same way. So what I would really encourage you to do is I would actually take some time and I would reset your pressure gauge, similar to what I did with Rowdy, but just get him back into that thinking state. Really help switch that processor back to thought rather than reaction. And then actually take him out and maybe do a little bit of that work. Maybe stop, maybe even get off him in moments and just help him understand, but you can control the pressure by thinking. Because what happens is, this is a little bit of a reptilian thing. If a cougar jumped out at a horse from a certain tree, then any tree a horse sees that looks like that, it's going to trigger that reptilian brain. And seems like exactly what's happening. So number one, you got to set him up really well to be in a real thinking state when you take him back out on the trail. Then make sure you're kind of checking in with him, softening the reins, making sure you're really calm. And I wouldn't go back to that same spot for a bit. I would try to go to places that just build confidence and connection, and then slowly work your way back to that. Really, really important. And really what happens is we just start slowly losing a connectivity to the met needs, because he's more attentive to what he fears than his knowledge of how he can control pressure by staying with you. Really encouraged to hear how that goes as you're able to get back into trying to mess with that. I know that cold weather can sometimes make that more challenging. All right, Susan. Hi, Susan. Susan says, when you were talking about Rowdy starting to bend on the circle, you explained that he was hooked on mentally. Can you explain how this is different from a horse turning to follow a person after that person has been aggressively chasing the horse around a pen? Awesome. I've seen other trainers also call that hooked on. Really great question. When we're speaking of relational horsemanship, we are trying to do nothing out of a horse doing something because they don't want to be chased. So if the motive of the horse is hooked on is because they're doing it because they don't want to be chased, and you can tell the difference by how they feel, this to me is not necessarily hooked on. This is a submissive follow. So the horse is following me in a real submissive, kind of a dominant way, just because they don't want to be chased anymore. And that is a little bit like me saying, if you walk away, I'm going to call you names, and I'm going to call you names until you come back. And then when you come back, I won't call you names. So it's like a negative for a positive. We've got to be really careful with pressure. To empower horses, we have to be really careful that we're not using negatives in a way to get what we want. What I hope you see what I was doing with Rowdy is I'm using a pressure to empower him to know how to control it. So very good. When he was hooked on, what it meant was that he knew the answer. He knew exactly that when I applied that pressure, that he could control that pressure, and all he had to do is hunt me. You can see that by how he came in. He didn't have this submissive, sullen, soaking wet. You know, a lot of times if a horse does this and it's more of a negative. So you guys saw the very beginning and you saw the very end. And I don't think Rowdy broke a sweat. Okay. If he went around the ring 3 times, I would stop him, because I don't want him to get caught up in running away. So generally, if a horse it's a negative style where a horse is being chased, the horse is going to be pretty wet. They're going to be pretty hot. They're going to have been sent and sent and sent until they come in that they just don't want to leave. So you're going to see differentiations in how the horses feel because of that. So I encourage everyone, don't listen to words necessarily. Listen to how the horses feel. I speak about this, that every one of us has been intuitively given this sense of knowing what meets your needs relationally. Because we all know some things happen and it just turns our guts. But sometimes we will do it because the person is supposed to know. But even it's still twisting our guts, but they're the professional. Whether it's me or anyone else, if there is a feeling that creates that, I encourage you to be cautious with your stepping forward into that relationship. So yes, the biggest difference is how the horse feels. He's not wet. He chose very quickly by the releases to find that. And in the end, because we were having nice interactions, he just hooked on and was able to stay. So the difference between relational and a more dominant base focuses on how the horse feels. Great question, Susan. Okay, Becky. Hi, Becky. Becky says, sometimes the pressure is used to drive. How to change that pressure to draw or soften? How do you know the difference? Man, that's a great question. This is something I go into quite thoroughly. I actually think I might have this on YouTube. We will be promoting this concept more on my website. We're actually in the process of redoing the whole website into a more module-based progression. So look forward to that. The difference is your energy. Now, most people with horses, especially a horse like Rowdy, we're going to be small because we don't want to tip the scale. We don't want him to run off or get worried, so we're really quiet. But now energetically, we've become submissive to his uncertainty. So he's led me to making an energetic effect. So what I want to do is I want to use the pressure, and I want you to think about this. I want to always be letting him feel what I'm saying. I don't want to hide any thoughts from him. So if I want him to come in, I'm really trying to feel myself draw there. And my pressure is used in a way where it's like I'm trying to get him to feel my energy. Okay. And if I want him to move off, my energy's saying it first. Now, there was maybe a millisecond that I used pressure with a bit of a send just to break his feet free when he got stuck. But other than that, there was no time when I was working Rowdy that I was saying, go away. All right. So really it comes down to your energy. Your pressure means you've missed what I said. Okay. And you have to be very clear with your energy, and your pressure has to release when the horse attends to that thought. Hopefully that makes sense. Really good question. That one kind of takes us into energetic control, which is what's going on inside you, opens up a whole other can of worms, but hopefully that makes sense. Again, guys, just for everybody, man, we go into all of these answers more thoroughly on the website, but just going to do my best to answer as many of them as I possibly can right now. Okay, Brooklyn. Hi, how are you? I need to leave early, so I'll catch the replay. Oh, thank you for this, Josh. So glad you were able to come. Claudia says, how do you go about a horse that is holding their tension in their shoulders as a form of self-preservation? Very good. So there's two factors here. Every horse is going to show their tension in a different part of their body. It's no different than you guys. If I were to ask any one of you, and all of us do this differently, often it's trauma-based. We've had an injury somewhere, so our body protects that part of ourselves, whether it's your jaw or your shoulders. We all know when we get stressed out, that part of us gets more sore. Horses do something similar. And when you feel a horse's tension, it is going to embody the mentality that got them there. Okay, so when you have a horse that's tight, and you said this very well, Claudia, that the tension in his shoulders is a form of his self-preservation. So probably when you start asking him to change his shoulders, you start seeing him get defensive, because that tension is the thought. And this is really, again, this takes us into a little bit more of a deeper conversation, but it's no different. When you have an injury, that injury will bring up the thought of that thing that happened. Okay, that's how the body protects itself from that thing happening again. Horses are very primal about this, and they will do this very quickly. So every time you apply the pressure, if his self-preservation is stored in his shoulder, he's going to feel guarded. So maybe he nips at you, maybe he strikes, maybe he, wrings his neck, but something will come up. All right. So the first thing to do is to make sure that he will soften to a feel. And I will actually go to the shoulders. There's a process that I use, a 3-part process to releasing the top line. And if the top line doesn't let go, you can't work the lateral line. So when we're asking about moving the shoulders, this is a laterality. If the horses are anchored like you watched Rowdy when he got tight like this, you're not moving them sideways, not when they're anchored down like that. All their weight's on their front end and they're stiff as a board. So the first thing you have to do is you have to gently ask them to soften. Now, I also want to say, guys, I recognize I'm going through a lot of stuff and I'm trying to be processed in this, but I am also, this is also a replay so you guys can come back to the answers I'm giving you individually and hear them again, but hopefully I'm not going too quickly. Okay, so you have three parts of the top line. You have the head and neck, and that's directly down. You have slightly down and forward, which is the shoulders, and that is where I would have you spend some time, Claudia. Take your hand slightly down, which starts to release the back, and then slightly forward and see if you can start feeling the tension in the shoulders release. Now this, if he walks off, you've done too much because you're just trying to connect to the tension. Then make sure what is in your body is the feeling you want his shoulders to have. This is where energetic connection comes in. We all understand this concept of energetic intensity. If you're around a negative person, it's pretty easy to start becoming negative. If you're around a real happy person, pretty good chance that you might cheer up. When it comes to the horses, if a horse is tighter than you are relaxed, pretty soon you'll be tight. But if you're more relaxed than a horse is tight, then there's a chance that tension will release. Your horses are studying you energetically. That is a big part of their communication. They listen and they feel, because what happens is you change energetically when your mind gets nervous. You also change energetically when you're relaxed and calm. So your horses are listening to that. So look to get your hand down and slightly forward, connect to the tension, stay very relaxed until you can take your hand side to side and start shifting those shoulders. Once you can chip away at that, you can start generally playing with a pressure to bring that answer out. But if you don't have that answer to release the shoulders, when you use the pressure, it will take him back to self-preservation because you haven't got enough of a change upstairs. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Really great questions, guys. I love it. So more about connecting rather than controlling. Yeah, there's no name on this one. This one just says from iPhone. So I anticipate that that's not your name. So yes, generally when we're talking about this stuff, it's really right. We want to develop connection. I'm telling you guys, any relationship that I felt controlled, you're hesitant. Usually you want to leave it because it doesn't satisfy your soul. Our souls are desiring connection, and I don't care what creature you are. We talk about a principle-based style, and this is an idea that it's like a principle on the earth, like something that resonates beyond, just horses or people. Everything on this planet seems to desire a connection with something. And yes, so I'm trying to meet my horse's needs because I love being in connection with them. That is my desire. All right. Rhonda says, can you speak more about teaching horses to deal with pressure when the horse is freezing or doing some focused staring at a novel object? You betcha. Number one, you have to have a preset relationship. So if a horse freezes up and locks their eyes on something and you haven't set a good tone for that, okay, let's just say sometimes we're learning, guys. Sometimes you say, oh, okay, well, I obviously have not got this well enough yet. The best thing you can do is actually less, not more. So, excuse me, what I encourage you to do here is just try to stand calmly. Don't try to get their eye or back them up or do anything. Stand in a position where you can present calmness and help the horse see how you feel about it. Okay. You'd be amazed at how powerful energetic control is. And we all know this in a trauma scenario, when everyone's running crazy, if somebody walks in, maybe a first responder, and they kind of settle the tone and they're like, okay, guys, settle down. You do this, you do that. Oh, it's almost like the sheep align and everyone knows where to put their feet. Okay. This is a little bit similar to this. So the first thing I want you to do, if you're in an overwhelmed scenario, I want you to stand there, look at the thing your horse is looking at and show them how you feel. A lot of times horses go through life almost like looking at humans. They look at a human as if it was like a movie, a scary movie. And you know that there is a person around the corner, but the person is just walking aimlessly, and they walk right into trouble. And you're saying in your head, oh, don't go there. And the person just walks through it. Horses kind of look at us like that person. They see all these scary things and we're just just walking aimlessly along. And they think we are, self-preserving mess ups, like they don't understand how we're still alive. Okay, so in this scenario, sometimes people think, well, don't put your attention on it. Don't look at it. Just walk away. But I find in certain moments when you haven't built a good deal, like you haven't kind of done enough homework to get them to change in those moments, when they see that you see it and you stay calm, you're being a positive example of change. Okay, so it's almost like they say, wow, you actually see that thing. Now, don't get too caught up in it. You don't have to stay there for 3 hours, but just let them see that you see it, show them how you feel, pet them on the neck, and wait until they calm, and then go away. And then leave it alone. You don't have to come back to it. You don't have to do anything. But then you also then need to go home and do more pressure release work to build up a mentality so that when you go back into that situation, you have more homework. Where I find people struggle is they say, oh, I understand what Josh is saying. And they head right out to that scary rock and they try this work at the scary rock. I'm telling you right now, if it works, it's a fluke. Okay. I wish I could say to you it was a quick fix and you could just go out and here's all your problems solved. But guys, this is relationship. It's really about building roots that the horse can trust. And that comes with, building this up for them. So again, take that, go do your homework in the moment, just show them that you recognize it and that you're not scared. Okay. And that can be a thing is if you've gotten too close to it, just recede, back away from it a bit, take the horse away from the hot moment. Awesome. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Miranda says, for my gelding, circle work is a trigger for him. With previous owners, he was chased in the round pen and on the lunge line. I've got him to where he is able to walk on the circle. I can ask him to shift his shoulders over and hindquarters over. He knows how to do an inside bend too. However, during the work, he comes in and out. He'll dissociate. Then I'll get him back for a moment. Then he'll dissociate again. Awesome. Okay. So a schooled horse that has been schooled in that type of style, totally the generally, and I don't want to make assumptions here, but generally they have been sent and chased. So they realize pressure means go away. And the two releases that horses will get is when you run away, you get relief. And when you stand and freeze, you get release. So we call this tolerance in my video, but it's also dissociate. And you've said that word here, or swallowed is another word that I call it, where the body is present, but the mind is totally locked up inside the body. Now, sacking a horse out can do this. So what I would recommend, and I'm not sure if you got here in time to see that footage, Miranda, but the footage that I released about Rowdy speaks directly to this concept, where you have to let them feel pressures and see that they can create release by making a mental shift. And secondly, pressure releases when they learn to soften to the rein. So now instead of dissociating, which they have gotten a lot of relief from, because we'll pressure them and throw bags and sacks and saddles and whatever, and they're supposed to just stand there. And if they're standing there, this is good. And what I'm trying to develop is a relationship where it's good when they can control it by being involved. So hopefully that makes sense, because this is exactly the idea. Anytime you feel he dissociates, give him a control by getting involved. You can do that by applying a little pressure and seeing his thought change. You can also do that by getting a softness, but you have to get him out of his body. Because just because he's standing still, you've already recognized, because you already in your own wisdom recognize that dissociation is a loss of relationship. Yes, he's standing there, but you've lost his essence. And in this work, the goal is to deeply connect on that kind of soul level with a horse. Okay, any ideas of how to help him stay in his body more or get him to re-engage? Yeah, that would be my starting point. Rhonda says, how dramatic might you get to draw a horse's attention? And I think you're speaking, this is really good, because I think you're speaking to the moment when your horse is frozen and their eyes are locked on. I would actually do less, not more in those moments. As crazy as that sounds, I would do less, not more. So when your horse is in that state, this is not the time to work at drawing their attention, because the horse will look at you like you're foolish. He will say, do you not see that crazy thing? Why would I take my attention off it? So you need to take a step back, stay calm, stand there, take a step back, and then work towards developing that pressure connection somewhere else. Now, for some of your horses that are not necessarily overly pressure-based, a lot of times people want to go to the round pen and they want to try this and they work at this for an hour. Okay, if you go and you do this with your horse and you see some slight changes with them, if you did that for 10 minutes, Awesome. Go do something else. So I want to really encourage everybody, do not just go to your round pen and then slog on this, because your horses will just get tuned out. This is about relationship. It's not about just repetition. And when you speak deeply to relationship, the horse understands it at a different level. And when you repeat it again, it actually gets annoying. The horse starts to get annoyed by it. Like if I asked you a math question and I just kept asking it and asking it and asking it, at some point you're going to think, wow, am I doing this wrong? Like, what is the point here? So get the change and then gently release it and build that in slow increments forward. All right. Okay. Kim. Hey, Kim. Just made it into the house. I'm glad you're here. All right. What if you can't actually see the thing that they see? Tara just stares out the stall window and back to the door. How can I help her in this space? I don't know if you have to see it. I don't know if you have to see it. You just have to constantly be an example. So the number one would be, you can look the same direction she's going and stay calm. You can acknowledge with her that you see it and that she's okay when you're standing there. Sometimes that's petting them. Sometimes it's just standing and holding space. I actually really like, we do something in my work called free liberty. And what this is that we just turn the horses loose. And I think, Kim, you and I have done that actually at the clinic in Salt Spring, where we would release them. And I really like to be able to do this, is actually do the free liberty work inside of these zones. Because sometimes what happens is they're in their stall and she knows she's kind of trapped. So then it builds up this belief that, you know, she's got to really watch that thing because she doesn't know what's going to come from there. But if you can, and you can set it up so that you're doing kind of a free liberty deal where you're letting her find you, but she's able to move. And if she wants to go check it out, she can. And then you're standing there calmly. I want to just encourage you to break the mold of believing that, you know, just get out of that process of believing that, you know, you have to get her thought off it. Because horses like Tara, she's strong. She's committed. And when horses are really strong like that, if you push too hard, they just push bigger because you can't get them that way. And I actually like it. I'm glad. I wish more horses were like that. I love them to be benevolent so they handle us, but I also don't want them to just accept our overuse of pressure. You know, if it's not working for them, I want them to tell you. So again, try to make a change, try to get non-conventional in how you help her. Stand there, let her be calm, or open the gate. If there's nowhere she can go and you can set it up so that she's in the barn, open it up and just see if you can work on that free liberty where, you know, if a little pressure can be added to get her to change her thought and let her have more freedom to move. All right, Katie, hey, what does your pre-riding prep look like? I think that was specific to when I was talking about Kari with Leona. If you had a plan to ride, what do you do on the ground first? Liberty, groundwork, etc. Awesome. If everything's going well, my progression, I'll be watching them when I bring them in from the field. I gently do a little bit of work to see that they're going to saddle and accept that well. Okay, I want to make sure that all those things are going good. So if all those things are going well, I might just gently progress. I'll do a little bit of groundwork, yes, but I want to know that the needs are met. So groundwork in and of itself should not just be getting the horse moving. Groundwork to me should be need meeting. So the horses come out of the field and they slept through the night and they heard branches cracking and they heard noises in the distance, and this causes their natural self-preservation to fire up. So by the time we go get them, we were cozily in our house and they were out in the field and the coyotes hollering and all these things were alarming to them. So the warm-up should be need meeting. So I want to make sure that when I use pressure, that I'm seeing that they know how to soften, that the pressure is changing their thoughts and they're not going inside themselves. They're not tight. So yes, liberty work is great. If your horse will hook onto you at liberty, this is a big statement that they're committing to you, that they're choosing to, as you add more pressure or add questions, that they're drawing to you more. The groundwork to me is more of all I want to do is I want to know that they're not harboring any tension in their top line. Because if their top line is tight and then I get on them, this inverts their back more. And Katie gives you more work because then you have more inverted body work issues that come up. So you want to see that the top line's relaxed and that they're softly moving. And then I want to see that the bridle gets that same effect. And then I can get that effect when I get on them. And if I can see that when I pick up the reins, they soften, I'm pretty happy with that. Then I would go forward. Now, when I was speaking with Leona about that, this was very much so about pressure prep. So if I've had a horse and I've gone out and I've observed that there was some major issue, Rhonda was talking about a mind issue where a horse's mind was really gone. What I'm going to do is I'm going to then add that to my prep work. So whatever you see out in the field or out on the trail, observe it, gently try to ask some questions to help it, but don't agitate it by trying in those moments to kind of ask questions that you didn't build prep for, because you just lose street credit. Okay, the horse will just look at you like you haven't earned this, and then you lose street cred. So just calmly deal with it, get through it, try to not make it worse, go home and then rebuild it. So with Leona, it would be play with those pressures, do some round pen work and focus more on the release of pressure. If it's the mind, I'll bring them back home, and then I want them to really realize if I apply a little pressure, look at how I feel. So pressure with a mind horse isn't just about you getting them to look at you. It's about getting them to feel you. So here's the thing. The best that the horse can do is whatever's going on in you. Okay, this is a lot of responsibility, and some people don't want to wear this. Okay, but if you're whatever's going on has caused a bunch of craziness in you, and you get the horse to look at you, what are they looking at? They're just seeing that you're scared too. So actually, in those moments, you might not want them to look at you. You don't necessarily want them to draw in. So just try your best to calm first. Then do your best to draw their attention to your feelings. And then go home and practice that at home, and then try again. But only get as close as you can build that. So I know I kind of jumped into a different thing there, Katie, with that, but hopefully that was helpful. Catherine says, hi, Catherine. Catherine says, how important it is establishing leadership prior to doing these or any practice or work with the horses? To me, it's like lifeblood. I want to make sure that anything I'm doing with my horses, that I have met their needs first. Because to me, this groundwork, the work you saw me do with Rowdy, was not about doing groundwork. It was about building a trusting connection between him and I. Because the reason horses want to leave us is usually because they don't see that we add to their self-preservation. But if I can do things that add to that, then they feel safe with me. And then a lot of these other things that happen just don't happen as much. That doesn't mean they don't, but you're going to see it a lot less. Okay, so it's really about prepping. So establishing that leadership before you go into that, it's really like just having a trusting relationship with someone and then going to do work with them. If you have to go do a job, but you've got a really good connection with a person, the job just goes so much more fluidly. And that's really what I see that leadership establishment or, that kind of comment about. Okay, Kim says, okay, I usually look at the stuff as well. Yes, looking at it is good. And mostly it's going to be making sure how you look at it so that you're taking it in, but you're being really calm. You're really trying to be an example. Energy is a super powerful thing. And what I mean by that, some people think I'm getting all wooey, but what I mean is when you're thinking of your energy, think of how you feel. Think of what you're giving off, and do not underestimate that your horse is reading that as a primary form of communication. So if you're bubbling with fear and anxiety, your horse is going to be feeling that. It changes the vibes you give off. Okay. And so we really want to stay connected to that concept of being aware of that. And so then just do your best, Kim. And you've shed so many layers with this mare. You guys have come so far. So I just encourage you to continue in that mind frame and then just break the patterns. Okay. So we had iPhone and now we have iPhone 2. Awesome. I just started the Liberty series. Should I, hold on here. I just started the Liberty series. Should I only do this for, say, the first few weeks, or when should I add on other work? Great question. I add on other stuff as it appears that the horse understands and has digested the work I've already done. So if I'm doing the Liberty work and the horse is hooked on, then what I'll try to do it. And I actually have, if you're watching the Liberty series, there's also a video, and I think it's in there, where I do some work with Cruz. It might be in Defining the Rein as well, but it's where I do Liberty with him and then I have his bridle on. And this is a great way of, the Liberty series complements really well with the Defining the Rein series, because it leads you to then defining the rein by a horse committing and choosing to be with you. See, when a horse hooks onto you through the Liberty work and then they can put the bridle rein in your hands, that is an entirely different statement than needing the bridle reins just to keep them. Okay, so regarding the Liberty, it's really great to go from the Liberty series to the REIN definition series. And then you'll know when the horse is ready. Are they calm? Are they relaxed? Are they getting bored with what you're doing? And a lot of times I see people, we're not changing our environment up enough. Okay, you need to get your horses out, get them doing different things, come up with new and creative ways to engage them, because just going and doing the work in circles all the time, a lot of the horses, their eyes are crossing, you know, because yes, you're working at it, but you'll watch, there's this phase, guys, where you try something new and it's producing great results. And then all of a sudden they start to stagnate. Then all of a sudden, maybe the horses start to demonstrate a disdain for it. But it's not really that they don't like the work. It's that they don't want to do it again. So if you find that's happening, change it up, try something different, really become variable in what you're doing. For me, man, I love it. I want to do the work inside. I want to get my horses out on the trail, and then I want to get them on a cow. I want that involvement in a working environment to be the thing they're stimulated by. And some of us just have to get creative if we don't have that avenue. Okay, Charlene says, hi, Josh. This new to me horse has a wall built around her body. Most of the time, she dislikes her body being touched. Understandable. Brushed or scratched. I think she's never been listened to and has not had any say. I'm actually having a small amount of success using a small handheld garden rake to reframe scratching for pleasure. It's almost like the human touch is difficult for her to tolerate. I just really want to encourage your encourage you with your intuition here. You're intuitively feeling your way through this. This is very good. So you recognize that she wasn't liking it. You recognize the feel. So you tried to make a change. This is really good. She's probably never really been touched with the rake, so then she doesn't have a reference for it. But she has reference for hands, and she has reference for brushes and all those things. And for her, when you think about the mind, so if we remember when we talked about the tree that the cougar jumped out of, so a horse walks by a tree and a cougar jumps out of it. Now their mind is going to just snap a shot of any trees that look like that. And they're going to start getting nervous when they see the tree, because the tree associates to a feeling. Now brushes and all of this stuff can do the same. So let's just back this boat up. And a lot of horses have gone through this. So Charlene, I hope you were able to see that footage of Rowdy that we showed in the beginning. And if you can't, I'm going to release this on YouTube later on. But this is the deal, is that when I first applied pressure, he just held. For a lot of people, they think that's a good spot. Now, just envision if you're scared and you're holding and then something happens to you, what your brain does is your brain associates the brush to that experience, because it's going to try to protect itself when it feels that thing. So now when she's touched, when she's brushed, when she's scratched, what does she associate with? She associates to that sacked out, dissociated perspective. And that's why she has walls up. Now, when you brought you brought the garden rake and you started scratching her with it, she has no reference for that. So now you're defining that rake. So what I would encourage you to do is to do exactly what you're doing. And you are being very intuitive here. And I really want to encourage that. Trust your feel, find new and creative ways to connect with her that don't at this point associate with the things that cause her to dissociate. Then you must teach her to soften to a feel, connect on the halter, and help feel her body and create release. Very important pieces at the beginning. And then secondly, from there, you want to see that when you move, that her eyes follow you, that she knows she can control it. And those are the two pieces I talked about with Rowdy. So I really encourage you to reference that. Okay, so your rake started to create a new reference point. Liberty, leading, softness is all getting better. Again, it's like she's got this guarded layer over her. And once I break through with reframing positive training, her layer comes off and her original training comes back as a memory. Just wondering if you had any suggestions to break through this. Honestly, I think you're on the right track. I want to just encourage you on this. Probably what you're doing is you don't have a huge amount of confidence with it. So then you're actually going with a kind of a weaker energy. I just really want to encourage you that constantly give her what your heart says. Here's the problem with most people, and space horses demonstrate this the best. Most of us are not letting our energy leave our body. And the reason we do this is that we've been hurt. We don't want to be hurt. We don't want anyone to know what we're thinking. We don't want someone to know that we like them or don't like them. So we don't let energy out. So what happens is the horses can't feel us then. So anytime you're hesitant, it's going to put you into a position where you're even smaller. And if you're worried about a horse's response, it will also make you small because you don't want to overdo it. But what happens is now the horse can't hear you. it would be similar to me talking clearly like this, guys, but then all of a sudden starting to whisper. And that doesn't mean you don't want to hear from me, but you can't hear me now. So it puts me into a situation where I'm actually disconnecting. So energetically stay very present and let her feel you, and then try to reference new releases to these things. Once you've reframed that, you can go back into the brushing. But what I would do is I would bring the brush, I would touch her with the brush, I would ask her to soften. When she softened, I'd take the brush away. So she can start reframing what the brush means and how it can be dealt with. Once she knows she can control the brush in a positive, connecting way, the brain will reformat that old memory and you will be able to brush her. Okay, that's the idea. But you got to reframe that first. It sounds like you're on a great progression. Your feel is right on track. Just try to do that with a level of confidence and try to break them down into small pieces. Anytime you want to go into an old thing, you have to have a new thing going well. Great, great stuff. Katie says, thanks, Josh. When you look at and acknowledge what they are looking at, do you position yourself in a specific position or angle, or is it just intent? Great question. It depends how the horse is going to respond. If they're really worried, I want to make sure the horse is not between me and the thing. That's going to be number one. The second piece is that I want to make sure that, yes, okay, so in general, what I would want to start with is that I'm between the horse and the thing. So if they struggled, they're behind me, they can stand there, they can snort, they can look, but I'm standing there calmly. So I want it to be that I'm energetically unmissable. Does that make sense? Unmissable. Like the horse couldn't miss how I'm presenting myself. But if I'm off to the side and the horse is staring right at it and I'm not even in the picture, your intention won't even be felt. So initially, I want to make sure I'm in a very viewable position for the horse, and I want them to feel me and see me and have no doubt how I feel about it. Once you feel and see a change, acknowledge the horse in a way they encourage acknowledgement. So for Charlene's horse, it wouldn't be by petting. It would just be by using a soft tone and speaking to her. With another horse, it might be by touching their neck. When you make that contact, really make sure you're being excessively intentional with your touch. So they feel you immediately. When you touch them, they feel what you're saying. They feel how you feel about it. Remember, guys, primarily when it comes to relationship, you're an example by your energy. We know mostly that, we don't really hear people's words. We hear the intention behind the words. Someone says, I said thank you. And they could have said it with the snarkiest tone, but they said the words. Okay, so if you touch a horse, remember, the more contact you make, the more they're going to sense you. And so then I would try to make contact, whether that was through the lead line, just to add a little feel, whether it was through me taking a step to draw their attention, but I want to wait until I see calming signals. Now, if we've gotten too close and the horse is going to lose their mind, gently back them away from it. Just back away. Don't turn and walk away, because if you try to turn and walk away, oftentimes when their tail is to the thing they're worried about, they want to run, and that sets up a negative tone. So I just gently ask them to back so it's a little less intense. Then try to draw their thought until you feel a change. Whew. Did we get through all the questions? That was great, guys. Okay, well, there we go. We are 10 minutes over, but I think we have been able to do it. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm so happy that I followed my intuition on posting that footage, because I feel like that was a great launching point for speaking to many of the questions. That's great. Yes, thank you guys. It's one of the things I love about this format that we do, because I truly enjoy connecting with you guys. It's one of my favorite things about, the website and Level 2, because we get to spend time together, and I really feel like I'm rooting for you all to succeed. And I feel like that's probably my biggest motivation for this, is to create community, and develop, more connections. I had intentions to talk a little bit about the virtual learning experience, and I just want to share a little bit about that just quickly before we end. I think maybe there might be one spot left. It's really filling up. So if anybody's interested, I would encourage you just to let me know, and we can get you on a waiting list. I'm excited about it because we've just found so much value in Level 3 and 2.5. For any of you that are on the site that are struggling with anything, we're going to turn the new site into a space where if you need help, you can connect with an instructor to help walk you through stuff. Because we have found as much as level 2 is a great space for learning and you're going to get to access huge amounts of footage, we also want to establish a space where you can have somebody help you if you need the help. Because sometimes it's about trying to bridge the gap between, okay, I watched Josh do it and I watched him work with his horses and a struggling horse, and now I'm in the barn with my own horse and I feel lost. Okay, so really what we're trying to do with that instructor style of the new website, you're going to see that more. There's going to be more instructors that people can kind of connect with. We want you to be able to have somebody you can reach out to and work with to take the footage, show what you're doing, and walk through that. And this virtual experience is going to be like that. I'm just opening the space to connect with some people and take you through 4 sessions of that. So anyways, we're trying our best to continue to intensify your learning experiences. I hope that that's helpful. And guys, yeah, we're just here to help. So I truly appreciate your feedback. I hope this was really helpful. Have a great and Merry Christmas. I know we have to be a little bit more isolated this year, so I hope that the website is a place that you can find more help and maybe dive into that. But again, Merry Christmas, everyone. And thank you for being a part of my life. You're all a great blessing to me. Bye for now, guys.